message came through just as I finalized the partnership documents for European clean energy expansion. It was December 22nd, and the San Francisco skyline shimmered in the distance, softened by coastal fog. Delaney, sweetheart, about Christmas this year. With your cousin Trent flying in from Dubai with his new girlfriend, she's an influencer, very high profile, we figured it's probably best if you sat this one out. Hope you understand. Love, Mom. I stared at the screen for a moment. Then I gave a small, weary smile. 38 years old, and they still treated me like the strange one. What they didn't know, what they'd never cared to ask, was that the consultant they dismissed at every family function was now Delaney Rhodes, founder and CEO of RhodesPoint Capital, the firm quietly driving sustainability investments across North America, Europe, and Southeast Asia. My chief of staff, Ari, stepped into the room. The board at Evervia Renewables is online. Perfect, I said, smoothing the cuffs of my blazer. Tailored, in Milan, though my mother still believed I shopped clearance racks. 18 years ago, I left our family estate in Palo Alto after declining an offer to join Rhodes and Trent, our family's real estate dynasty. Dad had barked, "You're throwing away your legacy." Trent, lounging in a silk robe, had smirked, "Let her go play entrepreneur. She'll be back." But I never came back. I built my firm out of a co-working space and sheer grit. Now, RhodesPoint held equity in 3 of their portfolio companies. Ari returned, holding a contract. Final paperwork from Rhodes and Trent. They need capital. All that's left is your signature. I took the folder, read it over, and handed it back. Decline the deal and wish them a happy holiday for me. The irony tasted better than any Rhodes and T, my family rode, the firm. They had no idea the company they were chasing belonged to the daughter they once dismissed as too ideal. I glanced again at my mother's text. Need to maintain a certain image. Then my inbox chimed. A new M. Delaney, Mom told me about Christmas. Don't overthink it. You know how she is with appearances. And Savannah's career is very public. It's just cleaner this way. Maybe once you're more I repeated. Rosenavid. Ari re-entered the office holding an iPad. Your father's on Zoom. He wants to confirm the contract ceremony. Delaney Rhodes speaking, I said, crisp and controlled. I always used my mother's maiden name in business, just enough to keep them unaware. Facing my fears after weeks of intense interruptions, I escaped from the small town and went to the big city to try my startup was a phase. Just checking everything's on track for tomorrow, yes? This deal is crazy. I thought of the years I'd spent in their shadow, the exclusion, the smug family dinners. Actually, Mr. Rhodes, I said evenly, I've been reviewing the terms. I have some concerns. Concerns? He faltered, but everything was cleared. Things change, I said. Let's discuss in person. Bring the whole family. After all, Rhodes and Trent is a family company, right? Yes, of course, he stammered. My wife Trent, Savannah. All your children, Mr. Rhodes, I said. A pause. Then, softer. Well? Delaney's not really involved. I didn't blink. All your children. Understood, he murmured. Good, I said, and ended the call. Tomorrow would be memorable. After my father disconnected, I leaned back in my leather chair, gazing out over the fog-draped San Francisco skyline. Tomorrow morning, my family would walk into RhodesPoint's headquarters, expecting to shake hands with a faceless executive. Instead, they'd come face to face with the daughter they had spent nearly 2 decades dismissing and erasing. Ari appeared at my office door. Shall I prep the main conference suite for tomorrow's signing? I nodded, eyes still on the contract. Yes. And Ari, make sure the photographers are ready. I want every moment captured. Every glance, every grimace. At night, I stayed late, mapping the seating chart, finalizing the press release, rehearsing exactly how I'd reveal myself. This wasn't just a deal, it was a reckoning. A reminder that quiet power is still power. The Rhodes family had always valued appearances. But tomorrow, they'd learn the difference between image and impact. And Christmas? It would never look the same again. By 6 o'clock a.m. I was back at RhodesPoint. The 47th floor executive suite gleamed, fresh orchids, imported walnut, and floor-to-ceiling glass framing the Bay Bridge beyond. Ari entered, composed as always. "Your family just arrived. Should I bring them up?" I checked my reflection in the glass. Gone were the cardigans and flats they remembered. Today I wore a tailored charcoal suit from Milan, Louboutin heels, and my grandmother's Cartier watch, her final gift, before the family exiled me. "Let them wait," I said, adjusting the cuff. "I'll make an entrance." 20 minutes later, I stood in my private elevator, watching the numbers tick upward. My phone buzzed. Another message from my mother. "Delaney, where are you? Your father says this meeting is crucial. Don't embarrass us." I smirked, slid the phone into my pocket. Through the conference room glass, I saw them, Dad pacing, Mom fixing Trent's cufflinks, Savannah rehearsing her polished smile, the senator flipping through the contract, bored. I gave Ari a small nod. Ari opened the doors with calm precision. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, "Miss Delaney Rhodes, CEO of RhodesPoint Capital." The room fell into stunned silence. The energy shifted instantly, thick, sharp, electric. My heels echoed against the polished stone floor as I walked in, every step measured. Then, crash. My mother's champagne flute slipped from her hand, shattering against the walnut conference table. My father's expression went ghostly. Rage flickered, then crumbled into disbelief. But it was Trent's silence I savored most. The golden boy, the future heir, frozen, jaw slack. "Good morning," I said, smoothly taking my seat at the head of the table. "Shall we begin?" This is nonsense," my father stammered. "You're just a consultant, a hobbyist." "Am I?" I opened a matte black folder, flipping to the first page. "Because these documents say I'm the CEO of the firm you've been negotiating with for the past 6 months, RhodesPoint Capital." The senator straightened, suddenly focused. "Excuse me? What exactly is happening here?" "Oh," I said, turning to Savannah with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. I would have loved to explain it over Christmas dinner. But I wasn't invited. Something about optics, wasn't it? My mother opened her mouth. "Delaney, darling, this has clearly been a misunderstanding." "Has it?" I interrupted, voice cold. I tapped the table. The wall screen blinked to life. "Let's review, shall we? Here's your text, Mom, asking me to stay away from Christmas. Here's Trent implying my work was a phase. And here," I tapped again, "is Dad begging for this partnership, unaware he was begging his daughter." Silence. Ari moved between chairs, distributing fresh contract copies. Dad flipped his open, frowning. "These aren't the same terms. These are different," I said calmly. "I've made revisions. I've had years to decide exactly how this plays out." Savannah leaned forward. "You can't do this. Rose and Trent has plans, global expansion, outside investors." I looked at her, unbothered. "And now, you'll need mine." "Like how I had plans when I started RhodesPoint with zero support," I said, my voice steady, "when I was the punchline at every holiday dinner?" "That was different," my mother whispered. "We were trying to protect you from disappointment." "No," I said, rising from my seat. My voice sliced through the air. "You weren't protecting me. You were protecting your reputation." I turned to the glass wall behind me, gesturing to the city glittering beyond. "Well, congratulations. By the end of today, the entire business world will know exactly who the Rhodes family really is." I adjusted the cuff of my blazer. "The partnership is off," I said, calm and final. RhodesPoint is moving forward with acquiring Evervia Renewables independently. And as my father's advisors will soon realize, that completely cuts Rhodes and Trent out of the European sustainability market. My father sank into his chair, the truth finally catching up. Without the capital and international leverage this deal provided, Rhodes and Trent would stay exactly where it was, a fading regional firm clinging to past glory. "You can't do this," he muttered. "We're family." I paused at the door, then turned slowly. "Family?" I said, eyebrow raised. "That's rich, because just yesterday I was told I wasn't successful enough to sit at the table. I tilted my head thoughtfully. I wondered, will I be enough for Christmas dinner now? And with that, I walked out. The silence behind me was more honest than anything they'd ever said aloud. Through the glass, I saw my mother dab at her tears with a silk handkerchief, my father frozen over the torn contract, and Trent, always so polished, staring at nothing, jaw slack. Ari caught up to me. That was intense. Are you all right? I glanced at my phone. A message blinked from my mother. Delaney, please come to dinner. We need to talk. I smiled faintly. Cancel Christmas dinner, I said. I've made better plans. The fallout was instant. Voicemails, emails, desperate texts. Delaney, we're still your family. You're destroying us. This isn't how family solves things. Please, just talk to us. I didn't respond to their texts. RhodesPoint finalized the acquisition of Evervia Renewables, while Rhodes and Trent stock began a slow, humiliating descent. The headlines were brutal. RH, Rhodes and Trent stumbles in international push. Deal collapsed, exposes legacy firm's weakness. Rhodes sorts surges ahead in green energy sector. 1 week later, I sat in my office, reviewing acquisition proposals from 2 biotech startups, when Ari stepped in again. Your cousin's here, she said, 3rd time this week, but today he came alone. I tapped the security feed. Trent stood quietly in the marble lobby, no perfect smile, no media-ready posture. His tie hung loose, his eyes looked hollow. Something had shifted. Send him up, I said after a pause. He entered slowly, taking in the high ceilings, the clean lines, the view. His eyes lingered on the subtle displays of power and taste. The oil painting, the Kyoto bonsai, the quiet authority of space earned, not inherited. Nice office, he said at last. Bigger than mine at Rhodes and Trent, though I guess that's not saying much now. What do you want, Trent? He sank into the chair across from me. No arrogance, just weariness. Savannah called off the engagement. I raised an eyebrow. The picture-perfect influencer couldn't handle a few bad headlines. She said I don't fit her brand anymore. He gave a joyless laugh. Said I've lost the shine. The irony was thick. Dad's spiraling, the board's restless, Mom's hiding from the club circuit, everything's unraveling. Because of me? I asked calmly. No, he admitted. Because we built everything on a facade, just like I did with Savannah. I studied him for a moment, then nodded. You treated success like it came in one look. I never matched it. I deserved that, he said softly. You deserved a lot more, I said, my voice sharpening. Do you have any idea what it felt like? Watching you all toast each other's success while pretending I didn't exist? Mom threw garden parties for every one of your promotions. She never even remembered what I did. We thought you were floundering. You never asked, I snapped, rising to my feet. Not once in 10 years did any of you ask about my company, my team, my mission. You were too busy dismissing me to realize I'd outpaced you all. Trent said nothing. His silence was the most honest thing he'd given me in years. Then his eyes filled, real tears, not the kind meant for photo ops or press conferences. I was awful to you. Yes? Can you forgive me? I looked at him, steady and unmoved. Forgiveness isn't the obstacle, Trent. Trust is. And that has to be earned. Suddenly, the door burst open. My parents strode in, brushing past Ari's protests. Delaney, my father barked, though his voice no longer carried its usual thunder. This has gone on long enough, he continued. You've made your point. Oh, I replied coolly. And what point is that? That's you're successful, my mother panted. That we underestimated you. Then we see you now, darling. Please, stop punishing us. I let out a soft laugh, dry, sharp. You think this is about revenge? About proving myself? I walked to the window and stared out at the glittering Bay Bridge. No. This is about consequences. About finally holding you accountable. Your judgment, your arrogance, Your erasure of me? It all has weight. We're your parents, my father said, his voice cracking. Everything we did was to protect you. I turned slowly. No. Everything you did was to protect your image. I gestured toward the headlines on my tablet. Well, congratulations. That image you fought so hard to protect? It's gone. A collapsing company, a broken engagement, and a family falling apart. What do you want from us? Trent asked, his voice quiet now, stripped of pretense. What I wanted, I said evenly, was your belief when I was building RhodesPoint, your respect when I succeeded, to be treated like family, not like an inconvenience. I paused, letting that truth land. But now, I don't want anything. My mother's tears slipped down her cheeks, but I didn't move. I'd seen them before. When I didn't choose the Ivy League, when I declined a role at the firm, when I dared to chart my own path. Please, Delaney, she whispered, it's almost Christmas. Ah, yes, I said, cool and measured. The Christmas dinner I was too much of a disappointment to attend. Are you still trying to maintain appearances, or did that crumble when your perfect candidate got dumped on page 6? My father stepped forward, voice hoarse. Just tell us. You want board seats, equity, public acknowledgement, whatever it is. Name it. I shook my head slowly. You still don't understand. I don't want what you have. RhodesPoint is worth 10 times more than Rhodes and Trent ever was. What I wanted, I said more softly, was a family that valued me, not just my resume. I pressed the intercom. Ari? Please escort them out and update the access list. Delaney, please, my mother tried one last time. We can fix this. No, I said. You don't fix a decade of erasure with a last-minute apology. The door closed behind them. The city lights blinked in silence. Then my phone buzzed. Heard what happened. Your grandmother would be proud. Christmas dinner's at my place this year. Margaret. I smiled, genuinely this time. This year, I'd spend the holidays where I was truly seen. Because sometimes, family isn't who raises you. It's who believes in you. The next morning, I convened my executive team at RhodesPoint Capital. It was time. We were rolling out our boldest initiative yet, a sweeping restructuring of the consulting landscape, beginning with the acquisition of 3 agile mid-tier firms along the West Coast. Rhodes and Trent wasn't on the list. As I stood before the board, presenting our forward strategy and long-term vision, my mind briefly drifted to the Christmas dinner likely underway in my parents' estate. The polished table, the hand-selected wines, the carefully staged smiles, all crafted to maintain the illusion that everything was still intact. Meanwhile, I was building something real. A week later, Ari entered my office and set a small box on my desk. Inside was a familiar object, my grandmother's old leather business card holder, and beneath it, a handwritten note from Margaret. She always said you'd outshine them all. Looks like she was right. I placed it beside my nameplate, a quiet monument to legacy. Not the kind you inherit, but the kind you forge. My family had clung to image. Well, now they had one. Just not the one they expected. And me? I had the one. I earned, respected, fulfilled, and finally free. Later, someone asked me, "Do you ever miss your family?" I smiled, turned back to the project briefs on my desk, and said simply, "I have a company to run." Because that was worth more than any seat at their table. If you've ever been underestimated, pushed aside, or told you weren't enough, this story is for you. I didn't build this life to prove them wrong. I built it to prove myself right, to honor that quiet fire that never went out. If my story resonated, leave a comment, tell me what you've overcome, or just say, "I see you." And remember, you don't need their invitation. Build your own table. And one day, they'll wish they had a seat.